welcome everybody. Travis Cheney here, CEO of Dynamic Directions. We're going to have some fun tonight on our Confidence in Crisis webinar series number 7. We are going to bring on 2 guests for your entertainment and education. I think it's going to be a lot of entertainment as much as education. But as we peel back the onion here, what we're really trying to demonstrate is what we'd like to see you start doing, and some of you have already been doing this, is having some virtual events for your clients and prospects. So I'm going to get off here and turn it over to our main man, Johnny Randall, and he is going to interview our first guest. John Randall, talk to us about what you got behind. There we go. Raise a glass. We'll do a toast first before we get started.
Yeah. Cheers, everyone. Here's to all of you in D2. We're also proud of you. You guys are working so hard. It seems like everyone's kind of coming out of the fog of, oh my gosh, and figuring out how to do this. And you guys are crushing it. It's great to hear the success stories, all the great things that are happening. And it seemed like it's just time. A lot of you are pivoting. Yeah, cheers, Travis. A lot of you are pivoting to more fun type things, that the education, the market updates aren't as needed, and more fun things like this are more relevant. So we're going to do basically a demonstration of how to do it, but we're going to come up for air at some points and say, hey, this is what you could do too. We've got some great guides we're going to email you afterwards around these. But a lot of you know I'm really passionate about wine. So much so, I always travel around with my sommelier series, Riedel glass. It's a proper glass. And with me is my favorite sommelier in the whole world, my favorite place to eat in the whole world, Papa Steakhouse, one of their Houston properties. It's just a ridiculous wine list and one of the most knowledgeable, cool people I've met. We both have a music background and actually played in the same group years apart, which is kind of cool. So Stephen McDonald from Houston, welcome to the call, Steve. Thanks so much for being on here.
It's my pleasure.
So Steve is in this crazy bunker of a wine cellar, an almost $1 million collection of wine. In this place, he showed it to me yesterday. It looks like a high school gymnasium, and it's massive, and it's pretty cool. So all those boxes behind him are filled with really cool wine. But Stephen's achieved the highest level in his field. So all of us have different designations and accreditations and recognition that you can achieve in your different fields. And Stephen's at the highest level. So Stephen, tell us a little bit about a wine sommelier, what the heck it means and what you do.
Yeah, 100%. So, first things first, if you're in the wine industry and you're either working in a retail or restaurant and you're curating a list or helping guests with selections, you can consider yourself a sommelier. And, over the years, it used to have different meanings. Back when there was, wealthy households, it was kind of like a butler, a food taster, for example. And then it became a person who curates foodstuffs and wine included. And then it evolved to restaurants, both doing inventory, making sure the wine was there, and then helping guests with their selections, kind of being an expert in this one specific thing. So you don't need a license to practice sommelier. If you do it, you can call yourself that. However, there's different curriculums out there available to wine industry to kind of validate your knowledge and your expertise. So, as it turns out, the one that's the most important to most of the people who have employed me is an organization called the Court of Master Sommeliers, of which there's 4 levels, 4 different tests, degrees that you have to pass the one previous to get to the next one. So there's an intro level, there's introductory level, there's a certified level, there's an advanced level, and at the very top, there's a Master Sommelier level. And it's an excruciating and famously hard exam. There's only about 260-ish master sommeliers in the world. So that's, it's something I've been working on for the better part of 10 years when I transitioned into hospitality from being a high school band director. So when I moved to New York, I didn't want to teach anymore, and so I decided to get into hospitality, into wines specifically. This specific test tests different things on the higher levels. The exam's broken up into 3 parts. There's a theory portion, which is simply that, a test of your theoretical knowledge of wine regions, wine law, soil types, etc. verbal when you get to the Master Sommelier exam. There is a blind tasting component. There are 6 wines in front of you, and you have 25 minutes to accurately describe all the wines and the structure and correctly deduct what those wines are for all 6 wines. In that time frame can be, very, very challenging. And then the third component is what we call service or practical, which is basically a fake restaurant that is designed and manned by master sommeliers that are, giving you the hardest time possible, being the most difficult guests, and asking you to do a bunch of different tasks like serve and decant and make cocktails and those sorts of things. And if you pass all 3 portions, we get to move on to the next level. And so, it was something that was important for me in my trajectory. When I was moving back from New York, I wanted to make sure I was at least advanced so that I was employable when I moved back. So I landed at the coolest, biggest wine program in the Southern United States, probably outside of Burns Steakhouse in Tampa, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at just the amount of people in the business, the amount of people that achieve this level. It's pretty much the equivalent of achieving a professional sports Hall of Fame. I mean, it's really a big deal. It's really hard. So I tell you, over the years, I've learned most about wine from people like Stephen, from sommeliers. And Stephen's been a great educator for me and taking me out of my comfort zone. One thing I'll challenge all of you, just like we do in developing you and your business, is to get out of your little bubble and expand your comfort zone and get out and grow. And that's how we grow as human beings. But I see a lot of you with food and with wine, you live in your little bubble. And this is a great opportunity to step out through food and through wine. And Stephen's going to take us through some cool things today that we can sort of step out on. Well, let's start with the basics, Stephen. Tell us about tasting, maybe what words and flavors that you think about when you're evaluating or just checking out a new wine.
Yeah, so I'm going to make it as concise as possible. The actual, kind of formal way to taste wine, again, there are no rules when you're tasting wine, but if you want to do it to get the most out of it, it's going to be broken up into 3 major components: the sight, the nose, and the palate. The sight's kind of simple. White wines get darker as they age, red wines get lighter as they age. So there's not a lot of information there. But if you see, for example, a young wine with a really dark color, maybe as a consumer, there might be something kind of weird or off. The nose is hugely important. It's where you get most of your information and most of the pleasure. And, when you're talking about wine, you're talking about fruit flavors and aromas to describe an actual other fruit, right? So in white wine, it's super simple. It's types of citrus fruits, types of pomaceous or tree fruits. That's apple and pear. Stone fruits, it's in your peach family. And then tropicals. And if you can name the category, that's a huge win. If you can name like a subset or fruit within that category, then you're also winning there too. For red wines, it's super simple: red fruits, black fruits, and blue fruits. So that's pretty simple. But what's maybe more important is noticing what condition those fruits are in. So when you're evaluating a wine, there's a difference between a flavor that resembles an apple that's been freshly picked off the tree and cut, or an apple that has sat on the counter for a long time. Again, from a deductive standpoint, you can kind of decide what climate and what part of the world that you may be coming from. But, from a consumer standpoint, it's just kind of, do you like the fresher styles, or do you like the more dried out kind of bruised or oxidative styles? Another huge component on the nose is identifying whether that wine has seen oak aging. And the flavors for that is kind of sweet baking spices, vanilla, coconut, dill, toastiness, cinnamon stick, those sorts of things. And there's, again, from a deductive standpoint, very few places in the world that age there are white wines, for example, in oak, and there's some other places in the old world that do different types of that, or can even afford that. Some people like the way oak changes in wine, and some people don't, and so that's just a personal preference. Non-fruits really are like any of the veggies, any of the herbs, any of the flowers that you can think about or name, and if it reminds you of being in a place, well, then name it. And I'm not a florist, so I don't get really geeky on the kinds of flowers. I just kind of say a color of flowers if I get that. And last, for flavor, is minerality, and there's some debate as to whether or not that actually exists. However, everybody knows the smell of like the chalk coming out of 2 erasers, if you're old enough to know what erasers are on a chalkboard. Everybody kind of knows what that chalkiness smells like. People can identify with the smell of wet rocks on a river, for example. And those can be in different volumes and different types and styles of wine, and that can be hugely important and add to the enjoyment and pleasure, and also tell you what this wine could be from or where this wine could be from. The palate is, get it on your palate, swish it around, chew it up, get the air going, whatever. Treat it like mouthwash. You really want to try to get as much out of the wine as possible. You paid for it, so get the enjoyment out of it. And it's really about seeing whether or not those aromas you smelled on the nose are also on the palate, and sometimes they change. Very likely they're going to stay quite the same. And then what we call structure. All right, so structure is like wine speak for the collection of all these components of body, acid, tannin, and alcohol that contribute to how a wine is put together and the enjoyment, again, of the wine, maybe longevity. So body is pretty simple. It's the difference between the way skim milk and heavy cream feel on the palate. Let's wait. Acid is how quickly and how much it makes your mouth water. So imagine biting into kind of a fresh lemon. It makes your mouth water immediately and a lot. Some wines can do that. They're typically from cooler climates. And alcohol. Everybody remembers like the first shot of whiskey or whatever they had, alcohol when they were young, and it burned their chest. And it's kind of that sensation, that warm sensation when you breathe in after you swallow some wine. Warmer, higher alcohols, typically warmer climates for where the wine's from. And then last is tannin, not applicable in white wines, but in red wines. Tannin is that kind of bitter astringency that can come from a bunch of different places, but it's similar to the sensation of when you let tea steep too long, and it has that kind of bitter quality to it, that drying out sensation. Again, separate from actual sugar left in a wine. And, it can contribute to your enjoyment. It can also contribute to a longevity, and the kind of tannin can tell you maybe what grape or where it's from. And really after that, it's if you're doing this as a business or as your profession, you can make some logical conclusions, and that can help you calibrate your tasting for the wine world. And if you're a consumer, it can simply tell you, hey, I like these things and I don't, and it can give you the type of language that you need to go to an experienced sommelier or retailer and get closest to what you like as possible. So that's kind of like the 30,000-foot flyover to tasting.
Yes, so this really gives the foundation for everyone that's on, for your clients. If you can help people figure out what they like, it's really gold. That opens up a whole new world of learning, because some people might have a certain brand or something that they've tried that they liked, but they're not quite sure what they liked about it. If you can help people figure that out, like Stephen's talking about here, wow, you can really take this to a whole nother level. So let's frame this, Stephen, in terms of categories. You talked about different levels of tasting and nose, taste, finish. What are some different categories of wine, and what are some characteristics, and what are some of the, commonly liked things that you notice about the people that come to your restaurant?
I think that, a lot of people who are eating this type of cuisine, and a lot of people who are just kind of getting into wine, they typically like full-bodied, fruit-driven wines from the New World. That's North America, South America, Australia, and New Zealand. And so, for example, if they, come to me with a picture of a really expensive Napa Cabernet, I could, certainly 40 pages of Napa Cabernet can get them something that's really, value-driven and something that comes very close in flavor. But I can also offer a lot of value when you move into another country like Australia or Argentina, for example, and those wines could typically come at a lower price point. On the opposite end of the spectrum, if you're ordering that seafood tower, those raw oysters, and you want something crisp and light, and you show me a picture of Louis Michel Chablis, well, I can certainly get you Louis Michel Chablis. We got tons of it. But what you might also enjoy are the crisp Sauvignon Blanc based wines of Sancerre in the Loire Valley. That's also very crisp and mineral driven, a little more aromatic. Or you might like the crisp white wine made from Albarino in Ria Speicher, Spain, right, which is the green area of Spain in the far northwest, or Gruner Veltliner from Austria. So, I can take that wine and get you that as close to that example as possible, or arm you with the information to speak in categories and take that and kind of keep yourself open to other options. I like crisp, unoaked, old world whites. I have at least 4 different parts of the world that you should check out.
So let's talk a little bit about age. This as you said, this fruit-driven kind of new wine. It's all the rage in America. the holy grail is aged wines. And I think, gosh, it was probably about 15 years ago, probably my first one. And I thought, wow, okay, this is what wine's supposed to taste like. What the heck is this? So tell us about just aging and what we should think about, what's drinkable right away, and maybe what we should wait on, or what we could, hunt for that might be some older vintages.
Well, first things first, if you like wines that are a little bit more primary and a little bit more fruity, and you like drinking wines young, then keep doing that. I'm not going to be the person that tells you you shouldn't. However, there can potentially be some great payoffs with a really well-made wine that's seen a little bit of age. And what happens is the fruit tends to dry out and kind of fall away. So wines that may have started their life with a lot of fruit and a lot of intensity get kind of mellower and more dried out as they age. The wine needs something like acid and tannin and elevated qualities typically to be okay over time, because those things are going to soften over time and create a more mellow, more nuanced, and to some people, a more complex and pleasurable wine experience. Let's be honest, like there's some, fresh styles of, say, for example, fresh styles of quickly made, crisp, fun white wines that aren't meant to age, and that was never their intention. I think there's some examples of really beautifully structured, big, huge Bordeauxs that are all, primary and locked up in their youth, and the payoff is really fantastic after 30, 40, 50 years. And so first things first, drink what you like to drink, and drink it the way you like to drink it. But on those few categories that can go the distance, I encourage you to seek those out, something that's been well stored and well curated, and see if it doesn't offer another dimension to your wine drinking.
Yeah, it's nice to hear just the hospitality that Stephen just kind of touched upon there. There's so much to learn, I think, from the restaurant industry and the way they serve and care for people. There's certainly a lot there. I'm okay being the one telling everyone you shouldn't drink this new crap, let it age a little bit. So outside of these categories, not everyone has, a Pappas Brothers down the street. I'm looking at some of the people on. Some might have like a Total Wine near them. Not everyone. So, what's your thoughts on just where to secure some decent wine, whether it's a small local store or maybe getting something shipped from online sources?
Right. I'll start with the stores, the local stores. It's sometimes mostly true, but not always true, that the smaller retailers, typically mom and pop, people who have like spent their life obsessing and dedicating themselves to the expertise and curating a very specialized list, and they might offer a little bit more of that hospitality and share that expertise with you and help you get what you want. Pay a little closer attention, give you that type of service, and I'm willing to pay for that, because when I go into the big stores, typically they don't have people who can help me as much or keep track of my orders and those sorts of things. There's some really beautiful big box stores, but I like to go and support those smaller people and people who have spent a lot of time specializing. The shipping from other places, John, I know you do a lot from like Benchmark and other retailers outside the state. If you're in a state like mine, which is Texas, then you do not have that ability, or if you do, you kind of risk it being taken away. Restaurants certainly can't buy from the secondary market or any retailer or any other place other than the 3-tier system. Collectors have a similar challenge, right? How do you get it into, first of all, a state that's 100 degrees most of the year, carefully, and then you're kind of directed that you can't do that. And there's some wonderful retailers on either coasts and overseas that have some really beautiful aged wines at low prices, but you can't. It's state by state. So if you can do it, then definitely try it out. Auction is another great place.
Yeah, I tell you that's where I found a lot of my gems. I find aged wines probably a third less than the current vintage that you might be able to buy at a wine store, like a Total Wine or a typical retailer. There's so many deals out there. It's unbelievable, and it's so much better to buy a 1995 Mondavi Reserve instead of the current vintage. I could literally find them for $70-$80 instead of $130 that I might be at Total Wine. So yeah, lots of gems out there. So I think in this format of doing these kind of things with clients, Steve and I thought about some different formats, which we're going to email you more details about with the follow-up here. But you could do a really casual kind of just happy hour like this, and everyone pour a drink just like we're doing. Let's have some fun. Let's have somebody talk about it, educate it, maybe go around and ask people, what they're drinking, what they're into. You could go to the level of maybe coordinating. Everyone gets the same wines at a store, orders them, and you try them together. You could try them together with an expert like Stephen. And then, Stephen, let's talk about maybe the highest level of doing a virtual tasting where maybe the advisors send a bottle of wine or a couple bottle wines to people's houses. They could even be a half bottle. And you open them together, you try them together, an expert like you walks them through that and kind of helps people understand what flavors they're getting, helps people determine what they like, don't like. So what have you done there? What's available in like a cool virtual tasting that would be something that advisors could duplicate here?
So yeah, in an ideal situation, you want the same wines, and if we're doing a high-end thing and you could spend a little bit more money and get it from a reputable place, I could certainly help you get the best value. Or really classic examples of, say, some category that's really collectible and age-worthy: Bordeaux, Northern Rhone, Barolo, Burgundy. I also have, on a personal, like a deck of presentations where you could do a deep dive, a Bordeaux 101, a Rhone 101, a Napa 101, or 201, like it could be a more advanced, has however deep you want to go, and taste the wines from that region. It kind of calibrates. So, right, I can take you through it. And it's like, this is a classic example, and a classic Northern Rhone is going to have, the peppery, the smoky, the meaty, the violets, and all that sort of stuff. And you can determine whether you like it or not, but you can certainly move forward in the world knowing that, like, if I order Northern Rhone Syrah, something from Côte Rôtie or Hermitage, this is what I can expect. These wines can also, age. So it can help, first of all, calibrate. I can take you through it. I can also give you that deep dive information so that you can kind of become a mini expert on that region when in a very short amount of time, compared to like if you had to go digging around on the internet or ask a bunch of your friends over time. So, you can literally make this as crazily over the top, geeky, or expensive or outrageous as you want, or the most casual, and just kind of tasting 101, or just a hangout and tell funny MS stories about the most ridiculous people on the earth.
So the deck Stephen's talking about, he's got some of this built out if you want to go crazy and go deep. Let's talk about some different regions. I'm so excited to see Mark Woodward drinking some Nebbiolo Barolo, a favorite of mine, favorite Stephen's. But Stephen, take us through some different parts of the world. What are some cool, types of wines, regions that we should be checking out?
Well, I'm going to start with where I'm the most passionate about. That's Burgundy, both red and white. There's still some odds and ends that you can get into that aren't going to break the bank, though most of it's just getting outrageously expensive. There are nooks and crannies in Bordeaux. They're a little harder to find now, but there's so much wine in Bordeaux, and the technology's there where you can find some really beautiful examples in the non-classified family of Bordeaux. Huge shout out to Northern Rhone. You heard me mention it. Côte Rôtie, Hermitage, Cornas, even some San Josef that's on the up and up. Because the technology and the growing is getting to a point where these wines are way outperforming their price point. Again, classic, elegant Northern Rhone Syrah, kind of a peppery version of Burgundy. And then Barolo and Barbaresco, right? You mentioned Nebbiolo-based wines, and they're still crazily undervalued because you can get just amazing classic examples for like 150 on a wine list. I'm going to use wine list prices when you can barely get into village level Burgundy for the same amount of money. You can taste the best producers of Barolo and Barbaresco for 300, with the best producers in Burgundy are going to cost you $10,000 a bottle, right? So so those are huge undervalued regions. And then there's a little bit of a renaissance going on in Chianti Classico, which is the historic center part of Chianti, not the big Chianti, but the smaller part. Some younger winemakers and vignerons that are had cleaned up their what their parents kind of left them, and making some beautiful wines that rival the best wines of Brunello or any other parts of Tuscany. So shout out to Chianti Classico. You can get in for super cheap. So again, those are the places. Also, I drink a lot of Beaujolais and I drink a lot of Champagne. So let's be very fair.
Now, what a cool client event that would be, exposing people to some new things that maybe they haven't tried before, maybe they haven't heard of. Again, most people kind of live in their comfort zone with wine. I hear from these somms that a lot of people come in and just, they know their wine and that's what they see in the list and they order it, not going to any of the other 5,000 wines available at a place like Pappas. But how cool would it be to show people something new and expand their horizons and have them check out something they might really like? I think you're right on that, California's gotten really expensive. And I think you said it best in the past that you probably have to get to about $100 a bottle if you look at really the cost and labor costs of making real wine and it actually aging in a real barrel for 18 months. It's a lot of money. It's an expensive endeavor. And we've got these kind of highly produced, manufactured wines. And something I like to point out is there's no ingredients in wine bottles. Who knows what the heck is in some of these things? And I think you're right. I think in some of these old world, these smaller places, smaller producers, they're so pure, they're so good, and you can find gems for $20, $30 that are just blow your doors off for super amazing. And so what might be a neat way there that we could help people expand their horizons in a cool client event, Stephen?
I like roughly would call it something like time and a place, right? Like you'd be shocked how few people order like champagne and crisp white wine to go with the early parts of the meal, which are typically seafood towers and raw oysters and shrimp cocktails and things. So, they're going straight into the heavy red. So a time and a place, right? It's a very European way of thinking about, have something, sparkling or something that acts as like an aperitif or something that pairs with those kind of middle courses. I frustrates me more because of where I work and the city that I work in, that people don't take advantage of that. I know that there are other parts of the country that do that really, really well, and Europe, obviously. But I think it would be fun to do like a time and a place situation. Odds and ends, right? Like we mentioned, Chianti Classico and Beaujolais. Wine for the money, if you choose it right, is going to just like blow you away a little bit. These are really inexpensive examples of really delicious wines that serve a purpose. All right. You're not going to put it with your dry aged red wine necessarily, but you could. And again, time and a place. So that would be a fun, different way of thinking about, the usefulness of these different categories, other than just kind of talking about and drinking.
So in our just real quick for everyone, we're going to capture some of those gems that Stephen mentioned. We're recording this. We'll even send the replay out, but our team's going to go back and capture these, and we'll get those out to you. So in our last couple of minutes here, for the people at home in the current situation that we're all in here, tell us a little bit about just storing our wine, glassware. What are just some tips for the home drinker, maybe on temperature, what the heck we should be drinking out of? What should the average person be paying attention to there?
Look, I live in a hot climate, so, I stick all my wines in my fridge. I do have a little like 30 bottle fridge, but it's basically another refrigerator. So, I'm not keeping anything for 30 years, so I'm going to be drinking it, within the next few months, whatever. So definitely keep it cool, even red wines. There's something refreshing about drinking red wines, particularly at a cooler temperature. And then also in the converse, like let your white wines warm up a little bit. You paid money for it. There are certain classes of aromas and aromatic compounds that aren't accessible at those low temperatures. So if you paid a lot of money for something, why don't you let it warm up so you can actually stick your nose in there and enjoy everything that you paid for. So those are my 2 tips on temperature. Drink reds cooler, drink whites a slightly bit warmer. Glassware. Today I'm using glass called Sophienwald. It's a kind of a copy of the Zalto glassware. It's another Austrian, like very famous glassware. You're drinking out of Riedel, John. I love all of those glasses as well. Let's be frank. At my house, I have like this entirely mismatched, set of everything. And, I drink champagne out of Burgundy glasses and, because I want to smell it and all that sort of stuff. So I think, the bigger the better, and drink things like crisp whites and champagne out of bigger glasses. I mean, that's just so you can get more enjoyment out of them. That would be my suggestion. At a restaurant as well. It's not uncommon now to be offered white wine glasses with champagne, and I think Burgundy glasses are even better. So big glasses, you don't have to spend a lot of money. There's some of the great Schatzwiesel glasses that you can get for like $10 a stem. So, that look great. But I like Sophienwald right now.
Well said. The bigger, the better. Thank you for confirming I'm not completely insane, only a little insane. So thank you, Stephen. It was awesome. We're going to send a lot of these talking points out to everyone. But thanks for being on, man, and good luck through all this.
Thank you. Likewise. Stay safe, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. I think Drew wants to say something to you real quick.
Stephen, your restaurant, I think it's the Tillman Fertitta property, correct?
No, sir. It's Papa's family.
Papa's Family. It was written up in Food and Wine, I think, this month about the wine cellar.
Yeah, it's a huge wine cellar, but it's still family owned by the Papas. Tillman has another restaurant down the street called Mastro's.
Okay. Yeah.
Very cool.
Talking about Houston wine. Thank you.
Well, hey, Stephen, I'll just let you know my favorite fruit is grape fermented. My favorite vegetable is corn distilled.
There you go.
So I'm with you. I appreciate you coming on. We're going to send everybody a tip sheet that go over the different ways you can do this as a result of trying to have something social and fun. And a lot of these things I think are probably best suited for a smaller crowd, probably 15, 20, 25 people. That way you can maintain some intimacy and when people talk. So, Stephen, thank you. And John,
Thanks,
you did a
guys.
great job. And John, put that glass up one more time. This is actually the smaller version I've seen John. Usually at conferences, just so you know, John will bring a glass that's slightly bigger than that. And he'll carry two bottles in his coat pockets. And we'll find a hiding spot somewhere at that conference, especially at the marketplace. And that's where we hide and store the wine until we get caught. And but John, I think that holds what, 2 bottles? That glass?
No. Not quite that much. I can slick a half bottle in there and rock a couple-hour marketplace, no problem with these bad boys. But it's the exact size, the Riedel Sommelier. I travel with these. I have a little case for them, and we take them everywhere, and I drink on them at home. I love it.
There we go. Yeah, a couple Christmases ago, I got John a flask. Do you remember that flask I got you, John? It was about this tall, this
gigantic,
wide.
yes.
So I had to get him something to complement his large wine glasses. So, all right. Thank you, guys. We're going to shift gears. We're going to go from spirits to lifting your spirit here with Bridget Tatum. Bridget, you on the line?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, we can hear you. So there you are. Good to see you, girl. How are you doing tonight?
All right.
Hi, Bridget. I'm
enjoying listening to professional alcoholics. Those are my favorites when y'all are professional.
Professional, yeah. I didn't want to ask Stephen how much wine he drinks in one day. I thought that would have been inappropriate. And really not, think about it, what he does. He's got to do that every day. So we'd have to put that in the right context.
Yeah, Travis's job is to drink. How awesome is that job?
That's right. Now, Bridget, what's your preferred drink? I know what it is. So tell everybody what you like to drink.
Tequila. But I love Italian red wines. So when he started talking about all that, I was like, you're speaking my language now. When I went over to Italy, I went through, I think, every wine that they had, or almost. And a little bit more room if I didn't get all of them, that I can go back.
There we go. Well, let me give you just for those of you who don't know Bridget, we're talking like friends because we are. I met her a couple of years ago at a benefit concert from a mutual friend now named Jeff Steele. And my wife actually surprised me with a songwriting session that she purchased that I had no idea she did that night at the benefit concert. And that was 2 Septembers ago, and Bridget and I have done a lot of songwriting together. She's my songwriting coach, my mentor, and I really appreciate that. She's also become a great family friend. She's been to the house. She's done some D2 functions. We just launched a songwriter series right here in Northborough. Unfortunately, coronavirus has put a delay on that. So we had a lot of fun. And Bridget, just so you all know, look, she's the real deal, folks. You're going to see in the bio. She had the #1 song that was played in 2009 called "She's Country" by Jason Aldean. She has several other cuts from artists like Randy Houser, Christy Lee Cook, The Farm, George Clinton. You also did that thing for the ACC football. You want to talk a little bit about that? I think that's pretty cool.
I know that there's probably some Alabama fans on here, but I'm a Clemson Tiger fan, so it was fun for me to be able to do that, except they had their own song, but it was awesome to be able to travel and do that.
So yeah, so she had the ACC official song there for a while called Loud. So Bridget, you're a songwriter and a professional one at that. What does that really mean for those people that listen to the radio? Maybe they're listening to the Stormy Warren show on Channel 56 on XM, and they hear their favorite artists like a Jason Aldean or some of these other people you've cut for. What should we make them songwriters? Because we really don't hear a lot of that. We just usually hear the artist that plays the song.
Right. We are actually the people that are making you drink. We are actually the people behind the music making you drink. Essentially what it means, though, is that this is where the root of everything starts. So before you ever hit those concerts, before you ever hit a little small place where you see an artist play, songwriters are usually in rooms or outside sometimes right now because we're all stuck at home trying to do this virtually. But we're in rooms together writing songs. So that means we start with a general idea of something. And Travis, you've experienced this. And we kind of talk through life. We kind of talk through what's going on in their lives, our lives, other people that we've talked to. And those ideas develop from that. We sit down together and we start mulling through that. And usually I'd like to say that it's a gift. I don't know that you can't necessarily teach somebody to put the emotion in a song, but you can definitely teach them how to write as far as the components and the pieces that go together. But getting that emotion in there is the special thing. So I'm fortunate that this is my job, that I have a number one song and some other cuts, and whatever the gift is, I'm grateful to have it. But they are the stories that go into those songs. Songwriter starts with that, and then you head on to the concert and drink your beer or your wine and stand there and enjoy the fruits of seeing that on stage while we've mulled it out for 8 hours to 6 months in rooms by ourselves or with another co-writer like you and I've done, Travis. So the stuff you hear on the radio, there's other bodies that are behind that literally sit down with a guitar or their keyboard, or they build a track, however they do it, and start it from a really small idea and grow it out. And then, boom, you buy your ticket and see it at the concert. And we didn't know that it meant something to you, but we're glad that it does.
Yeah, no, that's a great description.
Yeah.
And talk us through just a little bit, because I know like you and I and stuff, we usually create like what we call a demo, right? This is a working tape.
Right.
And then once you have that, what are some of the steps that the song might go through before it actually hits the radio or the concert?
That's a really great question, because that's a huge process that people usually never will ever see. That's definitely behind the scenes. So after we grow the idea and we think, okay, we're at the right place with the song, we've got something created that we can do something with, you kind of sit there and determine which way do you go with this, what artist might record this, who do we want to pitch it to. And we say pitch, it's almost like you throw it out there. That's why they call it that. Just like if you're in a baseball game and the ball gets pitched at you, they pitch this song to all of these artists. So if, you know, Travis, if you and I wrote something, we go, well, we have written something where I'm like, if we can get this to Chris Stapleton, I feel like this is an area that he would touch or would listen to. So essentially you take that work tape, which is usually recorded, well, it used to be on tapes. That's how long I've been doing it. But now it's on our iPhone. You take that work tape and it transfers over to these amazing musicians that do something that I can't even, still my brain cannot wrap around. In about 30 minutes, after we've written the song for 8 hours, 4 hours to 6 months, in about 30 minutes, they take the sound of that work tape, and if you've got somebody in there, like I produce music so I can produce it along, but you guys are so good that in about 30 minutes, they lay something down that sounds like something you would listen to on the radio. Process of that, from what you get back, that gets emailed over or gets taken over on a CD, which is rare now these days, but gets taken over possibly on a CD, but mostly emailed, and they're sent directly to the artist or to the producers or an A&R person, which is a person that listens for the artist or listens for the producers, for them to get the songs on their records. It's kind of the behind-the-scenes process, and it takes, you know, anywhere from a couple weeks to a month. I mean, Travis, you and I have worked together in that capacity. I mean, it took us like, what, a month? You got to go back and tweak some things out, but you put all of this work in for a possible yes or a possible no that quick.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure people understood it, you know, where it goes and the process. And of course, you know, I've heard stories from you and Jeff, you know, songs have sat on shelves literally for years been
Years.
pitched and and turned down, and all of a sudden you get that phone call and you maybe even forgot you did that song because it was so long ago.
Truth. You get the phone call and you drive to the side of the road and you try not to pee on yourself. That's what you do after you've done that.
I hear you. Well, let's get to some music here, Bridget. What we like to do here is maybe do a couple songs, and you talk a little bit like if we're a songwriter series, where I know we're going to talk about bringing someone like you or other performers, and how it usually goes when we bring in a songwriter and kind of the flow and the format there.
Yeah, we've you and I've done things with a whole group of your folks where we've written songs together. So this virtual thing is like a new world of tapping into where we could possibly do that as well. So I know you guys are going to email everything, but we could possibly almost like Mad Lib that together, which would be a lot of fun because your people say crazy stuff and I like it. It sticks.
Well, Drew is here. He was one of the songwriters back in that Nashville event. And what Bridget's talking about, we've done this a couple times with Bridget, where as a team building exercise, Bridget's coordinated writing a song in 45 minutes or less. And you guys think about that. I remember when we did that in Nashville, and I said we got 45 minutes, the oh shit look that everybody had on their face. But we had two teams, right? They actually got it done in less than 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And we had two heck of a songs. I know you had a fun time doing it, didn't you?
Yeah, it's really big in northern Slovakia, I hear.
Northern Slovakia.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's one format.
You've made -2 cents probably. You probably haven't gained anything from there.
That's right.
Bridget, why don't you play us a song here?
I'm going to do it. Why don't I do the song that I did for the ACC? This is the one that I got to tour around with, and Big and Rich had recorded this song. I'd actually done a demo, which is kind of like similar to that work tape thing where you take it in the studio and record it. And so I've been able to do the demo. We had cut it for my record because outside of being a songwriter, I'm an artist too. And we cut it for my record. I got it back at 9 p.m. By 9 a.m., it was gone because I was not on a label yet. John Rich said he had to have it. He played it 25 times marching around on the bus. But it came back. The ACC heard my version, and then that's how it ended up being that I toured for the ACC. And Clemson, I'm going to forgive them because they're too cool and had their own song. But I still got to go tour all the other campuses, and I was proud to do it. Very long, 12-hour sweaty video. But the song was called Loud. It goes like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, so John Rich is the one who kind of got that going for you, and then they liked your version, and that played
Yeah,
like how many times do you think in with the ACC?
He and I had a Wild West showdown in the middle of a room. It was pretty interesting because he had a label deal at the time and I didn't, and that's how this business works. If you don't have a deal, then you don't have anywhere for your song to go. So they were sitting on Warner Brothers, and then they ended up recording it. And they did that thing on the CMA Awards, if you remember that. And he came out in that fur coat, and he got in a lot of trouble with PETA all of a sudden.
Oh, for where? Yeah.
Yeah, the song kind of plummeted down, and then I feel like it came back home, and I got to do it for them. So that was a whole bunch of fun. 27 million households, 27 million people. Best part, I got a divorce, and my ex-husband had to see me every Saturday. Before football. I don't know if you can ruin a man's life better than that.
There you go. There you go. Good to see you. Good to see you on TV that many times. That's awesome. Well, what's another song you got for us, Bridget? That would be got a good story behind it.
I want to stay up. We can stay up. I feel like we've been down enough, probably sitting at home. Uncle Si. Let's talk about Uncle Si for a minute. So people have probably.
Oh, we're gonna go the Duck Dynasty route. I love this.
Duck Dynasty. Quack quack. So I met in the middle of a parking lot. Losers. I don't know. You probably, if you've ever been in Nashville, you've probably been to Midtown. Travis, have y'all been there?
I've been to Midtown many times.
Okay. So, all right. Well, we won't talk about the rest of what happens to you. But Losers is one of the places in the middle of Midtown, and there was a veteran charity event that I was playing. That was a red carpet event that he was playing. And I was like, well, I'm confused. What do you mean? He's got a band? And they were like, hey, he's got a band or something. That's something. And so I'm in the middle of this parking lot. He comes, and he does not come out. He sends someone, of course. And he sends them to come and get me and brings me up on the bus. And we talk about everything from God to life to country music to hunting, all the things. We talk about everything. And it was a joke at first because this band was terrible, y'all. It was horrible. And he knew it was horrible. And he would sing with a songbook, turn his back to the audience. And people were like, what is he doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I just like them as human beings. Whatever they're trying to do musically is probably not going to work out. So fast forward through all of that, I get a phone call, and they had a show in South Carolina. And Marcia which is his daughter-in-law who's in the band with us, was like, you want to join a band? And I'm going, what band? What band? And so she said it was theirs. And I was like, no, I've built my name for 20 years. I'm not trying to join that band and tear my whole successful career down. And they talked me into it a little bit, but more of it, there were songs that showed up, just like you and I start things from small ideas and grow them out. There were songs that showed up, but this particular song was one that I had written with Alyssa Moreno. And if you guys aren't familiar with her, Alyssa wrote Every Day for Rascal Flatts, and she wrote that with Jeff Steele, who you mentioned earlier, and it went on to be a #1 hit for them. This song has not gone on to be a #1 hit, but I dearly love this song. And is Sherry on here? Is she on here, Travis?
Sherry's on here. Yes.
Woo! Well, I'm just going to dedicate this song to you because she was one of our songwriters last time, wasn't she? She led the other group when we were in New Hampshire. And Sherry had a couple things to drink that night. Couple things, which brought this girl Yeehaw out. And when me and Liz were talking, she said about her friend from California who ended up getting drunk at Tootsie's, and her Yeehaw came out. Her Yeehaw side, let me make sure I make that clear. And I said, stop it, we're right. We did, we wrote, and Liz was so lost. She goes, what do you mean we're writing that song? And I was like, no, listen. As soon as I hit that and I started digging into my hee-haw days with my papa, it was over. I said, we have to write this song. And all I could see was Sweet Home Alabama, where the girl came back, got her accent back. She was drunk in the bar all of a sudden, and she was country again. So we wrote this song, and when I played for Si, because we all came together as a band, it's called Uncle Si and the Psychotics, appropriately. But when we all came together as a band, I said, hey, I'm going to send you this song. I need you to listen to it. And he did. Somehow, technologically challenged Si was able to listen to this. But he did, and he goes, he laughed and said, I love it, darling. I love it. And I was like, okay. I said, but I hear a but. He goes, Phil ain't going to like it. And I said, well, Phil ain't in the band, so I don't care. So We recorded this. It's called the Yeehaw song, and it's at Uncle Simon the Psychotics off of iTunes, and you can listen to the Hot Mess itself all together. So we recorded it. We've been on the road for 3 years now. And usually when I do this live, y'all know that you scream Yeehaw. So if anybody on here, if I'm able to hear you, Travis, lead the choir.
Yeehaw! Yeehaw!
Get why this is for you now?
I'm so afraid.
Yeehaw!
Oh,
Yeehaw!
yeah.
I did not write this line on purpose. It was already here, but this is the part where he goes, and you turn up Willie. He says that fat little CEO that's down there at Duck Commander every single time.
Yeehaw, baby! Woo! Great job!
That might be my favorite yeehaw ever. It's like delayed reaction, yeehaw.
We might have been a little late at times there,
I
Bridget.
had one too many drinks.
That was so good. There you are.
This is the Chinese karate movie, Yeehaw.
Yeah. It's like he says the Chinese karate movie. It's like we're reading your lips and then the dialogue comes like a second later. It's the same thing when we're singing. We're about 1 second off.
100%. I could not laugh right there. That was too funny. That was good.
So listen, folks, here's what I'm recommending. You know, I've worked with Bridget for a couple years now. She's great to work with. You may have other songwriters. She may have some people that she can get you in contact with if you're looking for a specific genre. But this is really easy to set up. You know, what we did in preparation is Ben did a rehearsal with her. We tested our technology. Want to make sure all that worked. And then our team can work with you because we had Mike Shaw last week do the cooking class, how to get the word out, the invitations, You can work with Bridget behind the scenes to say, hey, I'd like to make this, more, dialogue. Let's talk a little more. Let's make it interactive, right? Kind of like we've been doing it right now. Or it could be, Bridget, we just want you to tell your stories and play your songs. I mean, you can format this in any way that you want. What we find is probably a good time is around 40 to 45 minutes, no matter what we're going to do. That seems to be kind of the timeline that people have as far as attention span. And Bridget, I know you've done some like Instagram concerts. I've followed some others. It seems like that 45-minute mark is just a really good time on that. So you could set all that up. Hey, if you're looking for something fun to do with your team, I'd highly encourage you to do the songwriting. We've done that here probably 3 times now. We did it up with Rise. You guys know Bob Bonfilio and Brent Kiley. We surprised them. Bridget showed up. They wrote their own song. I think it was called Rise Up. It was pretty funny. Yes. There were some lyrics that were omitted in the song. It got a little dirty. But
rap version that he would never do, but it was good.
That's right. There was a rap version. There was 2 versions. We stuck with the country version. But there again, Bridget can work with you. I can work with you. John can work with you because we've been a part of that. We're just trying to get you guys, and maybe if it's not songwriting or wine, maybe it's a little bourbon or rye whiskey tasting. Maybe it's a cooking class. Maybe you bring on someone you interview from a certain industry that might be appealing to your clients. I just feel like we don't know how much longer this is going to last living in a virtual world. Yeah. I can assure you it's going to be a couple months, I think, that we're going to live in this world. And the more things that you can do added value and bring on guests and have this kind of fun and make it social, I just think the better off you're going to be. Drew, any comments on that?
I think keep it, be respectful of time. And 45 minutes is a great time frame. Make it fun. People want to have fun.
That's right.
And we forget we've taken a lot of stuff seriously, and we should. And the more of that kind of pent up, fun-loving part of Americans, that's what we need.
That's right.
And
I think everybody right now should be showing their yeehaw. That's where I think we should be right now as a country. If we would just show our yeehaw, I think we would have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think, absolutely. I think to put it in country music parlance, it's time, like Charlie Rich would say, we need to get out from behind closed doors, Travis.
There we go.
And we need to get out in the open.
So here's what we're going to do, folks. Bridget, why don't you tell us one more story, and we'll ride out with one more song. So what we'll do, folks, here, Bridget's going to tell a little story about, I believe She's Country. And then when she's done with She's Country, we'll be done. But go ahead, Bridget.
Big song for me. Obviously, it went #1 for a couple weeks. Grateful to have it. But the story behind it, I just wanted to rhyme kakalaki, y'all. To do, because I'm from South Carolina, and slang for that was kakalaki. I just thought it was a cool word. And Travis, from right with me, if I get on a word, I'm like, we got to figure out where that goes. It's such a good word. So I just wanted to rhyme that, and then all of my history of listening to hip-hop music and all of my Roger Miller history of listening to the 8-track stuff in my Papa's truck, all that kind of came together in this song, and even a little bit of the rock bands that I love, which is AC/DC and Aerosmith. So all of this cadence stuff was something that I just loved and had this going in the door. We actually wrote this at Jeff Steele's place, and I wrote this with Danny Meyer, but went #1 for a couple of weeks. One of y'all liked it, so thank you. You bought gas and tires for me. Thank you kindly. So we'll close this. Hey, Travis, thank you for having me on. Thank you guys for jumping on here. The
Absolutely. Glad to have you.
Go like this. She's a high little mother and a pickup truck. Daddy, sweet money done jacked it up. You can sound kakalaki, you can sound the pressure, man. Man, tell them down, down the family to I got really excited, and my screen went sideways. I got excited. Okay, we're back.
All right. Thanks, Bridget.
I got really excited playing that solo, so it went sideways from beating on the floor.
You're fine. We still heard you.
Yeah.
Thank
Still
you.
heard you. Listen, everybody, thank you all for showing up tonight. Drive safe. Ha ha. Most of you are at home. Yeah, look out for that kitchen counter, especially if you've been drinking too much wine. But we appreciate everybody for being on. Thank you, Steve and John, for what you're doing on the wine.
Thanks, guys.
We'll send you guys out a replay. We'll send you out a tip sheet on how to host something social like this with Bridget or something wine oriented. You all stay safe, stay healthy. We love you.
See ya.